help women, save lives, and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. And she just came out. She told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. We had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. And today we have a very important and timely topic, and that is the non-controversial topic of in vitro fertilization and abortion pill reversal. We have covered this previously in the podcast with what's going on as I guess we're all supposed to move to Alabama, even though they reversed their thing. The fact that they did this was fantastic. And so it made this a topic. Now people are rethinking in vitro fertilization, but today we will talk about that and abortion pill reversal from a medical and legal standpoint, as we are fortunate today. We have a very special guest, Dr. Donato Borrillo, which is not a really cool made-up Italian name, but a really cool actual Italian name. And he is both a lawyer and a doctor. And we are blessed to have him part of the Institute of Law and Justice. He joined our team just under a year ago, and his background is very vast. He obviously just recently joined 40 Days for Life as Assistant General Counsel and Director of Medical Legal Affairs, something that is desperately needed in a post-Roe world. He is still a practicing physician licensed in 8 states, and he's also an attorney admitted to the bar in Ohio and Michigan. He served as a flight surgeon with the United States Air Force and was assigned to the Special Operations Command in Europe and Africa. His previous legal practice focused on class action, mass torts, personal injury, wrongful death, occupational injury, and healthcare law. And he has also had a lot of time volunteering his many skills by providing care for terminally ill at Mother Teresa House in Lansing, Michigan. He also served with the Joyce Meyer Ministries in El Salvador and responded to Hurricane Katrina in 2005 with FEMA. And so Dr. Donato Borrillo joins us now. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
So,
and thanks for keeping me busy. Very busy.
Well, yes. I hope you keep saying that. So what's the deal? You just liked school? Like, you either are a doctor or a lawyer. And you're like, did you just not want to be done and get a job? You just kept going to school?
Well, back in the day, you're young, but there was a show called Quincy.
Okay.
He was a forensic pathologist. And it was sort of the old school CSI.
Okay.
So I became interested in that CSI aspect of it. I thought, how can I combine medicine and law? And then once I got into law school, things changed and you sort of move on. And
so, okay, that you set out to do it then, which is admirable. But, we've recently, that I had foot surgery a couple of months ago. And the doctor who did it was like you. He was a lawyer. And so every time I go to see what the heck's wrong with my foot, he wants to talk about like Roe v. Wade and Dobbs and all this stuff. Right. And his first words, he's like, I do have a law degree. And he's from New York also, like you. And he said, it's kind of sad. I just really liked school. And that was his reason.
Well, the professional test taker aspect of it, there's something there too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you're just constantly, did you go to medical school, then law school?
Went to medical school, University of Buffalo.
Okay.
And then went to law school at Case Western after I did my first year of residency at Cook County. So I had deferred for a year after getting accepted to law school so that I could moonlight as an ER doc while I was going to law school.
Wow.
But it's all by the grace of God, because somehow got through all of that.
That's unbelievable. And your parents are from Italy.
Yes, both of my parents are from the same town in Italy. It's only a town of about 2,000.
Okay.
The tree branches don't go too far divergent. As I said, it's only a town of 2,000, and so I'm related to the entire town almost.
Somebody was asking, you have a house over there.
Yes.
And somebody was asking you about, where's the key? How do you get in? How do you get the door open? And you said it's called a cousin.
It's called a cousin. There's lots of cousins, yes. And the house is near Padre Pio's town,
Yes.
Pietrelcina. It's only 15 kilometers from there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. You speak Italian. Did you grow up speaking it in the house? Did your parents?
Yes. As when parents get excited and they tend to speak in their native language, yes, that sort of
When it's
prompted
good or
me-
when you're in trouble?
Both.
Like the crazy Italian
Both.
mom coming after
Crazy
you with the
Italian-
spatula?
Yes.
Okay.
The wooden spoon.
So when she goes into Italian, it's bad.
Yes, but I mean, my mom, God bless her, she's 95 right now.
Oh my gosh.
Still cooking with that same wooden spoon.
That's awesome.
yes.
I would like to enjoy some of that
absolutely,
cooking.
absolutely.
That's fantastic. So did your parents speak English when they came over?
Yes, they were straight off the plane, so
Okay.
to speak, instead of the boat.
Yeah.
But and my father was a physician,
Okay.
so he came over. They married in Detroit, so I was actually born in Detroit, and then they moved to Buffalo,
Okay.
and so I grew up in Buffalo for about 30 years.
Okay. So you're from Buffalo, and we kind of have something in common in that I know you were. I don't know how much older you are, but you're not that much older than me. 1992 was a pivotal moment in my life. I was in the third grade.
Right, you're going to go there.
I'm totally going there. Y'all went to
you're-
4
you're-
Super Bowls.
Yes.
And you lost all of them. And you're still a man of faith and a man of hope, despite being a Bills fan. But we're going to put the Scott Norwood. Scott Norwood, for those of you who don't know, is the kicker for the Buffalo Bills who missed a field goal in the Super Bowl and gave the Giants a victory.
I relive this every night at about 2 a.m.
You wake up and
So now I get to see it
It's
once
not
again.
it's not the boogeyman chasing you with a butcher knife. It's Scott Norwood missing
Scott Norwood in the big sombrero. Now, nothing against Scott Norwood. Incredible kicker. He brought the Bills to that point.
And didn't all the crazies
And-
then go after him?
And they may have, but it was 47 yards wide right in the big sombrero in Tampa.
Yeah.
Before they
Before they
rebuilt,
got the new stadium.
And
It's a 47-yard field goal. It's not a gimme.
right. Although in the past Super Bowl they were making 53, but I'm just saying.
Stop.
Just-
You got to
just
let go
saying.
of that.
Yes,
You
yes.
can't reference. Then I didn't realize, but then they basically, when Ace Ventura: Pet Detective came out,
But that was a shorter field goal.
that was like a 26-yarder,
Right.
And then Ray Finkel, went nuts and actually was, I think, one of the first trans athletes actually ever,
Really?
because he became
Yeah.
a woman in the movie. But
Yes.
yeah, if I remember correct, I think we've had maybe a few Ace Ventura references on the podcast. But when you said the movie was basically a result of that Bills game, that's just fuel in the fire.
Yes.
It's
Oh
awful.
my goodness. It is. It's awful.
So, anyways, and then they lost 4 straight Super Bowls, and Buffalo is a great town. The first time I went there, it feels like a college town, like the Buffalo Bill atmosphere. I've never been to a game, but just the size of the city, having a major sports team. Green Bay and Buffalo are they're like college towns.
Yes, and it's a very outdoors kind of city, and the fans are not afraid to be outdoors in sub-zero weather. And now they have the University of Buffalo, which is a Division I also. And so the fans in Buffalo are very diehard fans. They're very loyal fans. And so even this past year, where, again, they missed wide right 44 yards, that's traumatic also.
It's just suffering.
But Buffalo, and as you know, Buffalo has one of our 40 Days for Life.
Yeah. It's a
videos.
great campaign.
They're fantastic
Great
people
campaign.
there, and I've stood out there with them, and they have maybe some other time we can talk about it. They have the yellow box that they have to stand inside of.
Yeah.
for a whole nother injunction, whole nother reason.
But it looks like my 9-year-old drew it. It's like,
Yes.
you can't stand here. It's like a yellow crayon or
You
something.
have to stand inside the
You have
box.
to stand outside the box, and you're
It's like,
like,
how do I get inside the box?
Yeah.
And how do I leave the box? How do I get inside the box? But it's a box.
yeah, we've had some legal trouble there. But that's a great campaign. When I went, they took me to the Anchor Bar where they invented chicken wings.
Yes,
Which
Frank
is a
and
great
Teresa.
contribution to the history of the United States.
Yes. Frank and Teresa's Anchor Bar.
Yeah.
And the story goes they only had chicken wings and there's nothing else on the menu. And some of the patrons at a very early hour in the morning, which Buffalo tends to keep their bars open until approximately 4 a.m. This was back in the day.
Back in the day.
And they came in and that's all they had. And they came up with fried chicken wings and made up their own sauce, and the rest is sort of history.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's Frank and Teresa's Anchor Bar, and then Duff's is another fantastic place for wings in Buffalo.
Yes, I had heard about Duff's, and I didn't go there. I've been to Anchor Bar twice in my trips to Buffalo. The only negative thing is the mafia will kill you if you do.
Well, now you have the Bills Mafia.
The Bills Mafia.
Yes.
And Niagara Falls is amazing, though. People should really go. There's nothing like it. It's unbelievable. They told me that the mob used to throw bodies in there.
It's not a gang; it's a club. Okay. This is from someone who grew up in a very Italian family, winemaking, etc. The whole thing. Yes.
So you now live in Florida.
Correct.
And you and your wife are also campaign leaders.
Yes.
In addition to being doctors and lawyers, you're leading the 40 Days for Life campaign. And so you're living a very productive life. No one can accuse you of being lazy. And you served in the Air Force.
Yes, sir. But again, it's all by the grace of God, given those opportunities. And definitely a shout out to Gainesville Vigil.
Yes.
That's out there. They're doing a fantastic job and just went 365 with that.
Yes.
And my wife, Lisa, does an incredible job out there. So they're working hard. They're on the street. They're on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Easier to be here with you.
Totally. It is.
So-
and we're in a comfortable
so
building.
yes.
And yeah, it is. It's right now they're out there. Okay. With your background, one of the reasons we desperately needed somebody like you to be part of the Institute of Law and Justice and to help us with our many legal cases is you're an expert when it comes to the abortion pills. And you've testified, you've done a lot of different things. Let's talk about, before we get to the in vitro stuff, California claims that APR doesn't work and is trying to ban it through this lawsuit by the AG. We don't agree with his stupid opinion because it works. When it started with Dr. Delgado in San Diego, I believe the success rate was somewhere in like the 20s or lower 30s, like 30%. Where is it now?
Well, it's always difficult to put an exact number on it.
Right.
But as long as it's better than nothing, I think that's a valid argument. As a physician, if I'm going to use a medication, as we say, off-label, I can use a medication off-label. It's very common in pediatrics to use a medication off-label. So, are there exact studies that
What does
say
that mean, off-label?
Off-label. Well, when the FDA approves a medication, they say, okay, you can use amoxicillin for strep throat.
Okay.
Okay. Now, has that been studied in the pediatric population? No, because they're not going to take 100 kids and see whether or not they get better. So there's a lot of medications that we use that have been through stage 1, 2, and 3 of the FDA approval process that we use off-label or for what the FDA has not approved or put it on the market for. Once a drug is on the market, then a physician, in her or his best clinical knowledge, based on the literature, based on their practice, based on their knowledge of the patient in front of them, can utilize that medication as they see fit.
Okay.
Now, within the standards of their own specialty, let's say. And so you have to adhere to what your specialty has, adhere to what your training is, but you can use that medication. So in the case of abortion pill reversal, Okay, there are studies, Delgado studies. But at the end of the day, I'm a physician. This medication is on the market. I can use that medication if someone comes to me. If I think that it's going to help them with their irregular menstrual period, even though the FDA has not approved it for that, so be it.
Right.
If I think that I want to help them because they want to reverse having taken mifepristone, which is the abortion pill,
That's
okay.
the first pill, right?
There you go. Yes.
So the first pill's taken. How much time do they have to say, "Oh my word, what have I done?" and get to a doctor for abortion pill reversal?
Well, let's go back to the FDA.
Okay.
Okay. So the FDA approves mifepristone for chemical abortion. And then you're supposed to take misoprostol for the second pill or the second dosing of medication for the uterus to contract. And you're supposed to do that within 24 hours to 48 hours on the package insert. Now, the package insert is something that we all get at the drugstore and we all throw it away. Nobody reads the package insert. But that's what FDA attorneys, I started reading package inserts when I became an FDA type attorney. Otherwise, I threw them away too. But you get the package insert, you get all that paperwork from the pharmacist, throw it away. Then, have you ever seen the sort of the samples that have the really tightly packed paperwork?
Yes.
And it's glued.
It's like rolled up.
Right. It's rolled up like a scroll. It's glued to the top of the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody throws that away
Everybody
too.
throws that away.
But that is...
And then you start taking pills that you were given. Yeah.
Right, because I was given the pill by the doc who said this is going to
I want to get rid of
you.
strep throat.
Right, yeah, exactly. So that tightly packaged information that everybody throws away, that is the FDA-approved package insert. The FDA package insert has on it what that medication is approved for and how it should be taken. And so, to your question, the FDA package insert says between 24 and 48 hours, you're supposed to take the second medication. So ideally, as soon as possible, for abortion pill reversal, you take it as soon as possible. That would be in the best interest. And it's sort of a... the chemical abortion pill.
So you need to take both of them if you want abortion pill reversal.
If you take mifepristone, which is the first pill for chemical abortion,
Right.
then you seek a provider, and you have that provider prescribe you progesterone, which mifepristone, what it does is it's very well studied how the mechanism works. But basically, it blocks progesterone. So if you give a tidal wave of progesterone to overcome that, you flood it, and you give you're competing for the same receptors, the same progesterone receptors. So you give a lot of it, and hopefully the mifepristone metabolizes, is eliminated, and by that time the progesterone is still there, and you've avoided a chemical abortion,
Which is all natural.
So that is basically how it works. So there is sound medical theory behind it. It's not craziness as far as where are they coming up with this? Is it,
Well, what Newsom is doing, which is ironic because he's in California, people treat it like you're the weird witchcraft doctor in the woods that's like, hey, crush up these green tea leaves, snort them, and then put a toothpick in your ear and you'll get rid of the flu. And it's not. It's based on medicine, with all due respect to those creepy woods people that are doctors.
Right. Nothing wrong with that.
We support your free speech
Wilderness
as well.
medicine has its place. Yes.
That's right.
But yes.
But it's not witchcraft.
No, it makes sense medically. And that's the first step of anything you do as a physician. Does this make sense medically? And can I use it to treat something medically? And so that's where the whole concept of off-label medication use comes in.
And it can't hurt the woman.
No, progesterone is progesterone.
Right.
It's not going to really do anything.
It's like you can't have too much vitamin C.
Well, not quite to that point. I mean, progesterone is still a hormone. It still has an effect on the uterus. It still has an effect on women's ovaries and uterine function. So it does have some adverse effects, but
it can't harm you. I mean, has anybody ever gotten hurt from abortion pill reversal?
I'm sure if you literature search it, you'll find one or two.
Okay.
I mean,
okay, so it's possible. All right,
it's possible.
that's good.
Anything's possible. But what we like working with in medicine and in medical legal medicine is more likely than not. Meaning, okay, more likely than not, is this going to help you? Not the rare could it happen? You and I could win the lottery. It ain't going to happen.
Right.
Right? I mean, the University of Buffalo could win the brackets, but they're not in it this year, so it ain't going to happen. So
The fact that you have hope with any
and let's not
sports
even go to the
team
Buffalo
in
Bills,
that
okay?
town.
The Buffalo Bills will win the Super Bowl at some point.
Just keep going.
Just could.
Just,
okay.
yeah.
So there you have it. So we like to deal in more likely than not probabilities because we like to deal with risk-benefit analysis in medicine. We like to deal with what is the risk, or this patient has come to me, they have taken a medication to induce an abortion, and they changed their mind. And so they come to me as a physician because they're seeking help. And they've changed their mind, and you can explain to them the risks and benefits of progesterone just as you would amoxicillin, just as you would any other medication. They make a decision to accept that medication, that treatment plan that you've given to them, and by God's grace, hopefully it turns out well.
And it works.
And it works.
It works.
So, and it's interesting that the California lawsuits are falling under the consumer protection
Yeah.
kind of clause.
But here's
So it's really just bizarre.
Well, what you said sums it up. So here's what we want, supposedly in America. In California, we want women to have access to health care. Okay, this is how we sell abortion. But only the women that want an abortion and are glad that they are having one currently, if they're doing this process, or that they had one last week, a surgical abortion. But what about the women who are going to the physician saying, I made a mistake, help me? Newsom wants to ban those people, and that's choice.
Correct, or make it seem as though it's craziness kind
It's
of
a
medicine.
psychopath with a lab coat.
Because he has decided that given his medical training and his background,
And it's got great hair. I mean,
that somehow now if you're going to take the appropriate steps in that manner, the state legislature of the state of California has actually looked at APR many years ago. So if they're going to vote on it, but to have someone just
so there's precedent.
yes, there is precedent, but to have somebody espouse their own medical idea that for consumer protection interest, I, as the AG, think that this medication should not be brought up or discussed with a patient.
It's like somebody being against like blood pressure medication.
Correct. Or the off-label use of any other medication, which again is just absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy. But this is the new abortion pill reversal. When I first heard about it, it was from our leader in San Diego, Gene Valinsky, God rest his soul. And I was getting in my rental car and he chased me down. He's like, I want to tell you about something. And he handed me this flyer that says abortion pill reversal. And I'm like, we just have so much like propaganda in our movement. We don't need to, this is so stupid. What is it? And he like explained it to me and I'm like, whatever. You can't reverse an abortion. And I got in my rental car and I drove up. And then of course I read it when I got home. I was like, this makes sense. One of the many times that it's been revealed to me that I'm an idiot. And so because he was friends with Dr. Delgado. So he's like totally convinced. And I'm like, sure, Dr. Delgado, I'm sure he's real. And I'm sure he went to medical school. It's like, we'll see you later. And then of course, now we know Dr. Delgado, the guy's a saint. But the problem that the abortion industry has, I feel, is that this didn't work like once out of 1,000 times. And it's like, praise God, we've got little Tommy. This is working a lot. And there's a lot of doctors now doing it. And you can actually reverse your abortion. And I don't think Planned Parenthood likes the stigma of that. The whole note, like my granny said, if you see billboards that say something in reversal, never do that. she didn't want us getting tattoos. And I don't have a tattoo, but it was like vasectomy, reversal, the tattoo, or whatever. That's not as big of a thing now. But if you see something and they're offering reversals for it, you probably shouldn't do it. And I like that with abortion pill reversal. Because why would you want to reverse this? This is healthcare. This is something you need.
Well, why would you want to reverse a chemical abortion?
Yeah, I'm saying it creates the stigma of abortion.
It creates a stigma. Now, one of the important aspects of this is really the growth of chemical abortions.
Yes.
When we have greater than 50% of the abortions in the United States are chemical abortions, that's why this is coming to be so important. And now you throw in the pharmacy aspect of it, as far as the expansion of pharmacies being certified in order to provide these medications, or the chemical abortion. So you have this growth in the non-surgical abortions, and you have a growth in the non-surgical abortions, which are the chemical abortions. In Europe, in the Scandinavian countries, you're looking at 90% chemical abortions. So in the United States, it is truly foreseeable that that number is going to continue to grow as far as chemical abortions. And so how do we save lives if that number is going to grow? Well, the way we save lives is by abortion pill reversal, by praying, by fasting, by doing the things we do.
Intercepting them. At Walgreens or CVS.
Yes. And so now you have the pharmaceutical aspect of it. You have the Walgreens, CVS that are seeking certification for dispensing. And even one step further, we're seeing where the pharmacist is going to be given the autonomy to do that without the provider, nurse practitioner, mid-level, or physician type of interaction.
I've got one more thing on this, and then we'll go to IVF. From a medical and legal perspective, isn't this a disaster for the HR part for the pharmacists at Walgreens and CVS? Because I know a lot of pharmacists. We have the Pensacola leader. He's a pharmacist. They went into pharmacy because they didn't want to deal with a lot of icky things, right? And now they have to become abortion doctors or abortion dispensers anyways. And so is CVS or Walgreens just going to force their own pharmacists? Are they grandfathered in? Because it's like, well, when you hired me, it was never on the radar that we were going to be handing this stuff through the drive-through window. You people have lost your mind. What's the conscience rights part of that?
Yes, there is a conscience clause that the pharmacy has that, and I'm not sure where that's written into the contracts of Walgreens and CVS and their pharmacists, but the conscience clause that does exist typically with the pharmacist is they can refuse to fill a medication based on their spirituality.
Okay.
Or their conscience if they don't feel as though they're spiritual, but they have that opportunity.
They use those words.
Yes. So they have that opportunity to say, no, I don't want to dispense that medication. And there's a whole slew of doctrine that applies to the pharmacist. There's a learned intermediary doctrine that we have to look at, and that's where pharmaceutical company that makes the chemical abortion pill is supposed to pass through the physician or the nurse practitioner or the PA that is supposed to discuss the risks and benefits with the mom. And now by eliminating that learned intermediary, now you have it all falling upon the pharmacist. So there's a whole slew of different aspects of the pharmacist and where the pharmacist plays into all of this. But being at a vigil in front of a pharmacy, the importance of the pharmacist and acknowledging that the pharmacist does not have to do that or fill that script is something that's very important.
But if he can't fill it, what do they have to do? Go to a different location?
Then they would go to a different location, find a pharmacist that will. It's the same thing as doctors don't perform abortions. They will find a physician that will perform abortions.
Let me ask you, I guess, an unfair question. Basically, they couldn't operate without the majority of their pharmacists being for this. Is the pharmacy part of medicine very pro-abortion, or do they think these chemical abortions are a gift?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't either.
It's almost have to almost wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I don't know where the pharmacies stand. It is the United States. We do tend to do things because of financial incentive,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if the medication for a chemical abortion averages in between $500 and $600, obviously there's money to be made by dispensing it at a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Correct? And so, unfortunately, that may be the bottom line.
It's just so much easier. If I'm going to get a chemical abortion, I want to go to Planned Parenthood because of the access and the process. Nobody's in there. Nobody's in looking at greeting cards or Snicker bars. They're not going through the ice cream section. If you go through the drive, you don't want to be seen in the drive-through. I guess you could be really anonymous. That would be the best way. I don't know if they're going to allow that to pick it up through the drive-through. I assume they will. But the reason Planned Parenthood abortion facilities, including this building, the closed Planned Parenthood, they're designed this way is to make the client as comfortable and as hidden as possible. So they have gates and fences and, locations that aren't in the middle. CVS and Walgreens are the busiest locations. That's prime American real estate.
Yes.
There's people everywhere.
They've taken over the gas station corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
And no one knows why you're at the pharmacist, and no one cares. But if you're going in for an abortion, you are conscious of that. And you're thinking, are they going to ask me? Are they going to know? I just think we have dealt with so many women, and they don't want anyone to know that they're having an abortion or they had an abortion. And that's how abortion facilities are built. I think there's something very odd about doing something as controversial as abortion at an open, busy place like CVS or Walgreens, because your heart's going to stop when the pharmacist comes up and gives you the instructions, because everybody can hear that. They give you like cholesterol medicine or blood pressure or whatever it is. You get the flu and they're like, okay, have you taken this before? And that's a little different if it's going to be an abortion. I don't know how much of a moneymaker it's going to be for them.
Agree. Yeah, finance is not my.
I mean, if they started selling
specialty,
like tacos, I'd be like, that's smart. People are going into CVS all the time. You might as well grab a taco. And I just think that there's a level of seriousness or controversy, no matter what side of the issue you're on, that most people are like, and we saw this when they announced, and we did a lot of news stories on it. I got interviewed about it a lot, and a lot of people were like, even pro-choice people were like, ugh, CVS and Walgreens are going to be dispensing abortions. It just doesn't feel right.
And then you have the pharmacist aspect of it that we were just talking about. You've got that whole another person involved that because of their religious beliefs can say, no, I'm not going to fill it. So I don't see where Walgreens and CVS are rolling this out.
And this is another thing, when you just take the temperature of the country, these pharmacists, for better or for worse, have already been put through the ringer with COVID and the vaccines and all that stuff. And it's just kind of put a highlight, are you for them or against them, doc? And so now it's like, hey, things have calmed down, COVID's gone, you're going to start handing out abortion pills. Right. See you at the conference in Phoenix, and you're like, what? I think it'll help turnover. I think that the pharmacists will just either do it and make money, quit, or opt out. But I think there would be a growing pressure if they opted out.
Yes, and I think our presence outside on the sidewalk.
Oh, gold.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got
Absolutely.
a lot. We've really grown with that aspect of having the vigils outside of CVS and Walgreens. And
Right.
it's I don't like to use the term loosely, but it's just a lot of fun because you've got people running in there to get the toilet paper and
Right.
the Reese's peanut butter cups. And they're like, why are y'all here? And they're like, well, they dispense abortions. Ah! Tommy, get in the car. And they run out because this is just the folks. These are people know that people go to Planned Parenthood for abortions. They're like, that's their right to do so. If you want to stand out there and stop them, that's fine. But when you're not even thinking about it, and your wife texts you, we need lighter fluid, you're grilling chicken tonight,
right.
And you walk in and some lady's like, here's your abortion pill reversal pamphlet. Like, what? Lighter fluid. Oh, man, what a mess. Okay.
Yes.
Let's move on to an easier topic, in vitro fertilization.
Oh, much easier. Yes, much easier. Yes.
Okay, so thank God this has become a hot topic because I think that people just don't think about this. Mm-hmm. And in vitro, we did a whole podcast on it where we did our disclaimer. We don't hate people. If you did in vitro and you have a child, that child has dignity. So we have checked that box. The process, however, is quite, I don't know. One of my favorite books is A Brave New World. And so whenever we say, because Huxley was so criticized when he wrote that. They said he's an alarmist, he's a psycho, he's a lunatic. And now that's kind of like a comic book. It's like, this is we were way further than that. So we're going to start making people through artificial means, freezing the leftovers or discarding the leftovers. My question to you is, I'm Catholic and you're Catholic, and the only institution in the world that's consistently been against this is the Catholic Church. And people look at that like, yeah, they're just weird. They don't allow you to contracept. And then if you can't have kids, they don't allow in vitro, whatever. They just put it in the box. And most Catholics don't even know that's what the church teaches. And it's just one of these, I don't think you're going to hear like a bunch of sermons on in vitro. Maybe you are recently. But so forget that part. Forget the natural law part or the religious part. Do medicine, it's very unregulated. And medicine's highly regulated, but not in vitro. Do most doctors see in vitro as shady or a blessing?
Well, I haven't surveyed any. I haven't done a survey. But just from my experience, I would say most physicians tend to accept in vitro fertilization as a means for infertility. And when we get into the specifics of the case in Alabama, I think some things will really come to light, which are things that a physician would not accept. So the case in Alabama, everybody sort of kind of jumps straight to the holding, which is fertilized egg is a human being. Everybody jumps straight to that. But when you actually look at the facts, the fact pattern, because what we do in law is we get a fact pattern, then there's the law, you apply the law to the fact pattern, and then you come up with a holding, et cetera, right? As it makes its way through the legal process. So the case is actually LePage v. Mobile Infirmary Clinic. Okay, so think about that for just a second. It's LePage versus Mobile Infirmary.
Right.
It's a mobile clinic kind of thing, okay?
Right.
Now, I don't know if you know the facts of the case or not, but
yeah.
Okay. So
but from the get-go, it sounds shady.
Oh, it's incredible. A patient, not a staff member, not a nurse, not a doctor, not a technician. A patient goes into the storage room. Okay, so now we're talking access, HIPAA, all those kinds of things that you sign all that paperwork when you go to.
We say they're very, very unregulated. This is a great example.
Okay, so patient walks into the storage room, and picks up and takes up a tray of fertilized eggs. It's so cold, they actually get frostbite from picking up the tray and they drop it. Now, it's a patient in a medical facility, medical area. I mean, this whole thing just sounds
And what we don't know is why they did it, or they
Right.
could have been nuts. But everybody's like, well, why did the patient go in there? It's kind of a distracting point. But it's like, The fact that they
went in
could
there. The fact
is
that they
insane.
yeah, right. So, we have locked doors in medicine. We, if it's a scheduled medication, it's supposed to be behind 2 locked doors. So we have all these kind of where patients can go, where patients can't go. Patients that sort of kind of roam into storage facility areas that have the fertilized eggs that your clinic tries so hard to fertilize and to use. And so in my former life as a plaintiff attorney, oh my goodness, if somebody came in with this fact pattern, I'm going to be retiring in Barbados, right? I mean, it would have been, have a seat, coffee, what would you like?
Yeah.
Anything. Because the fact pattern is just so egregious. You just sit there and you go, oh my goodness, how can this happen? So 3 families were involved, okay, out of all the eggs that were dropped, right? And so then they go to trial and they bring there's an 1800s 1897 I think it is statute on the books in Alabama about wrongful death of a minor.
Okay.
1800s. IVF was not back then. Okay, so let's just start with it. But they had to define wrongful death of a minor. So that's the statute that was on the books. So they use that at trial. The judge at trial says, nah, doesn't meet the definition. They appeal. It goes to the Supreme Court of Alabama, and 8 out of 9 Supreme Court justices for Alabama say, yeah, it meets the definition. And, part of this is you're looking at going, it's such an egregious fact pattern. It's like, how could and that's why it's amazing that you don't hear it from the pro-choice, we'll say liberal side of the table, because it's like, how could they not? I mean, as a plaintiff attorney, as a plaintiff, as that side of the table, there's no way you wouldn't want this case to go forward.
Right.
Right? And you're just sort of kind of trying to fit it into a fact pattern, fit it into a statute, and so the Supreme right, exactly. That's my point. You can't have it both ways. So what does everybody do? They just jump straight to the holding, and they say, "Oh, look, Alabama Supreme Court justices are crazy. They're Republican, and that's the holding." Well, let's back it up a little bit here and say, okay, so you have issues with the plaintiffs too, then?
Right. And you can't have it both ways.
No.
You also can't have it both ways with IVF children have dignity. IVF is a blessing. What's wrong with you? These people want children. You're supposed to be pro-life. Okay. What happens if they're destroyed? Well, I mean, they're not people. It's just like frozen cells. You can't do it both ways. And those parents didn't. The parents were like, no, those were our babies. We invested our time and our money and everything else, and we were, blessed that we conceived. And then Ding Dong goes in looking for the gummy bears and drops our kid and kills them. And everybody looks at those parents and says, it wasn't your kid. You're nuts.
Right.
But according to the fertility folks, it is.
Yeah. So it's and there's much more to it, even from a physician point of view. Interesting topic. Of those fertilized eggs, what percentage actually take in a 35-year-old? 50%-ish on first try, right? And so you're looking at all these percentages, and you're looking at all these numbers, and numbers don't lie, but liars use numbers, right? And so you look at all these statistics, and you're sitting there thinking, well, okay, we know that as a physician, that 30% of fertilized eggs will take, and mom doesn't even know that there was a loss of an egg and just thought it was a heavy period. That happens all the time, right? I mean, you look at about 30% implantation rate for normal course, but that's God's way of populating. Right. And so backing it up all the way to, okay, we're both Roman Catholic. Where do we stand on this kind of thing? It is a life, and perhaps the Roman Catholic Church's stance was there to not get us into these problems to begin with.
Which is all, well,
Right.
For the Catholic perspective, that's all the teachings. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like sex before marriage.
Yes.
You know,
and
it's
so you're there.
Yeah.
You know, and so you get into that problem and we told you so. It's like, okay, thank you.
Well, and the church's teaching is that it's against nature, that the marital act is how procreation happens, which every doctor knows. They don't have to be married, obviously, for it to actually happen, but that this is the natural way. But when we start putting people in a freezer and hoping that 3 of the 10 survive or 1 of the 10 survive, and then it's the ethical question, which you remove God from it entirely. Can we do that? Can we just throw out frozen embryos? Like, is that okay? And we did a whole podcast. The link is on the page on in vitro, but there's a lot of parents that regret it, or there's a lot of parents that say they didn't know that there were multiple frozen embryos or multiple embryos in order to get your baby. Most of the couples I know that did in vitro are like, oh, we only did 1 egg. And I've been told by physicians that's kind of like the college guys that wake up like, you know, and they're all like hungover and they're like, we only had 1 beer last night. You know, it's just like, and so I got that it's like, you got to use multiple eggs, you know? So.
Because from a physician point of view, if you're going to harvest and you're going to do that type of procedure, yeah, you're going to try to make the best odds possible for your patient.
Yeah.
So yes, I could easily see that.
It's interesting to me, and I know this is a crazy view because a lot of people do see in vitro as a blessing, and I understand why they do, because it is a beautiful and natural desire to want children, and it's a problem now because there's not only a population crisis, but a just sort of a hatred of the family and of children. And here these people are like, hey, we're willing to do this, and you're telling us we can't. But once you go down that trail, you end up with this disaster. There's estimated 600,000 frozen embryos in the United States.
Yeah. And it's you know, as an aside,
Okay.
when you look at what stage you freeze an embryo, okay, so you and I, you can't freeze us. Right?
I don't know.
You can't. It's not the Austin Powers kind of freezing thing, right?
My wife's had 8 children, so I told the kids, like, and I offered to my wife, should we freeze you for like 6 weeks, and it would catch her up on all the sleep,
right.
all the sleep that she's lost. And I was like, you wake up, I don't know, it's like Memorial Day weekend or whatever,
Right.
and we kind of update you on how the kids' school
So
went.
we'll just bring you up to speed. Yeah, it's all the same. But if
my kids, by the way, didn't want to not freeze mom because they were worried about her. They didn't want to not freeze mom because
then they'd have so many weeks of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's why we didn't do it.
Same thing as cloning you. That's
Right.
a whole nother topic.
Okay.
So if you tried to freeze you or I, you know, it wouldn't work because we're all water, right? When you freeze water, put a beer in the freezer, mistake, right? Same thing, you freeze a person, the shards from the ice, it's just like why you buy fresh meat instead of frozen meat, or fresh fish instead of frozen fish, because you don't want those shards, you don't want the ice to ruin the membranes, to ruin everything else, right? Mm-hmm. You can't freeze us. Can't freeze your kids. Can't freeze an 8-month child in the womb. Can't freeze a 3-month child in the womb. So the stage at which you freeze is about 110, 120 cells, which is a blastocele type of fertilized egg.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
This is a great point.
And I don't even know if the topic's ever going to be addressed, but it's interesting in that, you know, you can't freeze us, you can't freeze a baby, you can freeze a fertilized egg that is an unborn child at 110, 120 cells. It's just sort of an interesting concept of where is this freezing, where is the person-ish kind of concept, because then again, it goes back to the question of 30% implantation rate.
Yeah.
So that person who walked into looking for the ice cream bar, that walked into the room, again, go back to the numbers kind of argument. All right, well, dropped a tray, 1/3 of that tray, according to medicine, wouldn't take. Still, you dropped the tray. You dropped the kids.
How many were on the tray?
I have no idea. But I mean, that's the sort of the
We'll never
concept.
learn
That's
that.
the only thing you learn in medical school when you do OBGYN. Don't drop the baby.
Right. That's
It's the only thing you learn. When baby's born, don't drop the baby.
my father-in-law's an
That's it.
OBGYN, and he was like,
all
I
you
never
do.
dropped the baby.
Never
That was-
drop. That's all you got to remember is don't drop the baby. Okay, everything else takes care of itself. It's all natural, and by God's grace, it works.
Yeah.
All you got to do is remember, don't drop the baby.
Don't drop the baby.
Then you get a passing grade.
Exactly. But the people suing, I want to go back to that. That is the problem here. Because how do you tell the parents that you're crazy? And they're like, but we're doing this because embryos are people.
Right.
That's why we're doing it. We
Yes.
want a person. We want a little person.
They knew that back in the 1800s when they came up with the law.
Right. Exactly.
And so, yes, and the fact pattern is so, again, egregious. It's so crazy. And you can't have it both ways. But you don't hear the fact pattern when you see it on the news, and you just hear the holding and how the justices were wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. They didn't seem, 8 out of 9 of them.
I think, too, it's a tremendous blessing now because it's not that, oh, you're infertile. Well, get over it. It's God's will. No kids for you.
Right.
Movie night every night. Whatever you want to do. Because there's so many other alternatives to in vitro. There's the NAPRO technology. There's natural ways to treat fertility. And I know many people. Steve Carlin, all of his children, went through that process, and it's natural, it's great, and it works. And I think similarly to abortion pill reversal, which is natural and works, in vitro, I think people see as like a get out of jail free card, and it's a long process. It doesn't have a high success rate. It's expensive.
Yes, costly.
And I still think people, they always do a little bit of the asterisks where they're like, we did in vitro. And there's always they always seem like they feel ashamed of it. And I think that it's, obviously I think it's wrong. So I think it's a good thing to be ashamed of if you, not the end result, obviously, the child, but the process. And I know a lot of people who got into in vitro, it didn't work, they were frustrated, and then they had a baby.
Yes. And let's not forget about Sarah and Abraham.
Right.
Might as well go all the way back.
Right.
I mean, so at age 80.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, yes, as a parent.
I think most women in our country don't like that story.
That
'cause
story,
they're like, I don't want to be pregnant when I'm. Yeah.
Right. Right. And so, yes, but it's there.
It's there.
Just saying. And as a parent, having kids, again, very fortunate by God's blessings. Cannot imagine how difficult it is for someone to go through that, or to look at options as far as adoption, or to look at everything else that exists. We went through the adoption foster process, even though we've got 6 kids, we still went through the process. And perhaps that's something that needs to be streamlined a little bit, because it is incredibly difficult.
It's a mess.
It really is. I mean, having people come to your house 3 or 4 times to check your water temperature and whether or not you have smoke detectors, and whether,
Yep. No.
it's truly crazy.
If you just go to the hospital and have a baby, nobody does any of that.
Nobody does any of
I
that.
remember they handed
Right.
me Bridget, and they're like, okay, well, thank you. And they checked the car seat, and I'm like, you're just letting us take her?
Oh, they even checked your car seat?
They did
Nice.
check the car
Okay.
seat.
I mean, that's even
And the demented soul who invented car seats never had a baby.
Right.
Everybody
Absolutely
knows
not.
that. There's some
Yes.
evil engineer out there. But yeah, you're just kind of sitting here going, she's just going, like, she's now our responsibility, which of course
That's
mentally you're all, not prepared, but you know it's going to happen. But there's just something about walking out with this human.
Yes.
And then the adoption process, which is a great intention and a wonderful thing, is just a beatdown. And part of it is we have so much abuse and we have so much crime and children have just, been treated so poorly. We have to do all this due diligence. But then it's like, the AAA battery's out in your fire, alarm.
You're a bad parent.
Yeah, we're taking the kids. So it does. But I do. I think that I'm convicted about this because I was fortunate enough, like when I was in the 8th grade, I heard a couple speak that had done in vitro and really regretted it. Mm-hmm. And it became a wedge in their marriage. And that doesn't mean it is for everybody. I'm not saying that. There's a lot of success stories, but the process is still shady.
Well, yes, when you can have somebody walk into a storage room.
Yeah.
Just sort of speaks for itself.
No, yeah.
That is, again, just so bizarre.
No, it's totally bizarre. And your point earlier is we got ourselves into this mess, and there's going to be of a brave new world, and there's going to be consequences. And the guy looking for the frozen Snicker bar is part of the consequence. Is just he dropped the tray.
Right.
How many frozen? And I'm interested if there's going to be other plaintiffs that come forward, and they say, "Well, my kid was on that tray."
I think they pretty much identified the tray and
They
the
have.
3 families.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So they only have the 3 families with that tray.
Okay.
But
how many?
who knows what may happen in the future, or if they're if
Can they sue the patient civilly? The patient who dropped them? Well, I keep going between medicine and law.
Well, there is as a plaintiff attorney, former plaintiff attorney, there is the concept of deep pockets, and so the clinic and the hospital were brought into it more so than the patient.
Right.
Okay. The patient who wanders into the storage room, I'm not thinking is all there or has. I mean, what are they doing there in the first place? And what are they,
I don't know.
So
what if there's some weird
not
billionaire?
profiling, judging, but I'm just saying that doesn't seem as deep a pocket as the hospital and that has a 3 million, 1 million policy.
Exactly.
Okay, so who you're going to identify, the mechanics of that lawsuit with those 3 clients and how their attorneys approached it. I don't know the specifics of it, but in general, as a plaintiff attorney, you do look for who's covered by the med mal and who's got the deeper pockets.
Okay, I have a crazy way to end this podcast. I want your opinion.
Does it have to do with the bills?
No,
Okay,
we'll close with that. We'll really close with that. The bills. Okay, you know how people say, like 30 years ago, we never saw this coming. I'm sure you have your list, And I think now it's probably the trans thing, which really happened in the last, 3 years.
Which, by the way, supplying hormone medication off-label for transgender changes is very similar to providing off-label medication for abortion pill reversal.
But in that case, for your analogy, it's like giving a abortion pill reversal to a male dog because it actually can't do anything.
Right, but
you're trying to change. You're going against. The guy says, "I want to be a chick."
Correct. But this is, don't tell a physician what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, I'm a physician. I can use this drug off-label. If there's a physician that does it off-label for transgender,
right,
that's okay. But if it's a physician who does it for abortion pill reversal, that's not okay.
Right. No, that's a good point. It's a very good point. I think what I don't know if this will happen, but I don't know what ethically we have that would prove to me that it wouldn't. And Michael J. Fox is really the one who made everyone aware of this. And I think it'll take a while. But I would worry that we like to tug at the heart and then justify our immorality. The abortion industry uses rape to do it. The in vitro people use family to do it. If I have a 2-year-old son and he needs a liver transplant, or a 1-year-old son, these embryos are just frozen. They have no meaning. They're just stuck there in limbo. What morally would prevent us, I'm saying America, our conscience, we're not showing we don't have the discipline not to thaw one of those kids out and take their liver and discard them. This is like the Brave New World keeps getting worse. I know it sounds nuts, but I would worry they'd have some system where they, I don't know, maybe they just free, I don't know how they would do it. But that to me, the whole alleviate suffering, and they're useless. They're sitting in there. They're just frozen. Their parents had a kid 22 years ago or whatever, though in vitro, and these are the leftover eggs. I would worry that we just have those in our possession.
Yes, and I think I agree. And that's where I think we turn to, and I'm almost afraid to say this, but we turn to our representatives, we turn to our government, we turn to the legislature for determining how we don't go down that path, right? And that's why it's so important for us to choose our representatives and to get out there and pick them when we should, because otherwise we're going to lose that opportunity and it will just go, we'll just do whatever we want with these fertilized eggs because there's a profit.
And I don't understand why they can't sell them for medical testing. I mean, the Planned Parenthood sells baby body parts scandal made sense to me. It's the most horrific, barbaric thing ever. But if you can kill a baby and sleep at night, then you can sell their liver. You can sell their baby body parts. So everybody like outraged that Planned Parenthood would do it. And it definitely had shock value. There's a reason the Nazis would like rip the gold tooth out of the Jews at Auschwitz, because it had value. You know, it makes us want to throw up. And for them, it just was logical. And that's the same for Planned Parenthood. And I worry with these frozen embryos, there's got to be, and this is the Michael J. Fox point, which is they're not serving any purpose. I can get better. I could get better. You're selfish. And that's a scary mindset. I think you're right, though. I know we kind of, people roll their eyes when it's like, well, there is a political answer. But there's a big political answer with the abortion pills and the trafficking and regulating them. And we see states doing that. And I definitely think we see it with preventing, you know. Why couldn't it be like Jurassic Park, where the guy goes in and instead of looking for the ice cream bar and he drops it, it's somebody who's going to take them, put them in the shaving cream can that they use in Jurassic Park. And I don't know, do something with those. But you have frozen people. To me, that is a scary thing, which is why the whole thing is bad, because you get down to this ethical path that has no good ending.
Right. Why put yourself in that position?
Right.
So to speak.
Right. So, so with that, I really respect you actually for saying, so you said a lot of great things, but when you said that the Bills were going to win the Super Bowl.
Or could.
Oh gosh.
That was a could. Not a more likely than not.
But that is a very America's better days are ahead of us attitude.
Yes,
like you have been through the ringer. They went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. I know I keep reminding you, you lived through it.
Yes.
And even I, like as a kid, as a huge Cowboys fan, you know, and of course we crushed y'all for 2 years. You should have won the second year. That
Should have won 4 years.
No. Yeah, that's called greed. Okay, and it never works. So,
at least one. But all right.
We hated the Redskins, so we were rooting for y'all when you played the Redskins.
And
I was like 8 or 9 years old. I remember all this. And then the Giants, we hated the Giants. They were in our division, and y'all lost to them. And just Marv Levy's like a great guy, their coach, and
Great commercial, Snickers commercial.
Yes.
Not going anywhere.
And Jim Kelly's a great guy.
Great. Yes.
Great guy.
Yes.
Their quarterback. And it's like, but you're that fan. Like, you lived through all this, and then you're sitting here going, they could win the Super Bowl this year.
It actually gets worse.
Okay.
So I grew up in Buffalo and went through that turmoil. Then, as I mentioned, I went to Case Western Law School. So I moved to Cleveland.
Oh, mercy.
I moved to Cleveland the year that Art Modell moved the team. So now I moved to Cleveland, and the Browns are no longer there. They will be there eventually, and they come back, but they're still the Browns.
This is like getting drugged by a horse,
gets worse.
Getting up and then getting hit by a car.
Gets worse. So after being a diehard Browns fan, after being a Bills fan, then a Browns fan, then I moved to Michigan and the Lions. Now I'm starting to think it's me.
It is you. It's definitely you.
Then it gets worse, because then when I moved to Florida, that's when Tampa lost Brady, and when the Tampa Bay Lightning lost after winning the Stanley Cup. So now I'm really thinking it's just me.
It's you.
Yes.
Yeah. So you haven't been in Florida that long.
No, just 2 years, 2.5 years.
Brady retired upon your arrival.
Yes.
He left. The
knew.
greatest player of all time.
Knew
left
I was coming
because
down
he's
there.
like, we have no
He's like,
chance.
no. He's coming down. I'm gone.
We have no chance. Well, we're so fortunate to have you part of the team, and I mean a local leader. But just having you as part of the Institute, especially in a post-Roe America, it's just fantastic. And so, thank you for being willing to serve our leaders, and thank you for going to all that school. Now it's serving the unborn.
Yes, and thanks for having me. And if anything comes up, please keep us busy. And again, just a shout out to everybody on the sidewalks.
Yeah, that's where it happens.
Really,
And that's the whole point of the Institute of Law and Justice. We've said this over and over, is to protect our mission, You see the link, by the way, to the podcast that we did on in vitro fertilization. We did a deep dive. I know we touched on it from the medical aspect today, but if you have not listened to that, please do so. Please rate, review. If you disagree with something or you have a question for Dr. Borrillo, please email us at podcast@40daysforlife.com, podcast@40daysforlife.com. And again, if you have a legal issue, email legal@40daysforlife.com, legal@40daysforlife.com. So please leave your comments, send us some hate mail. If you disagree with us, if you agree with us, you can send that too, but we're more interested in the hatred. Please be sure to share this podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.